This is the heartbreaking yet inspiring story of a young girl whose life was forever changed by unimaginable trauma. But this isn't just a story of pain. It's a story of courage, resilience, and one mother's relentless fight for justice. In a small, quiet village in India, where traditions run deep and voices are often silenced, a dark secret shattered the lives of an innocent family. What happened next shocked the entire community and revealed the strength of a mother who refused to back down, no matter the cost. But here's the question. Could you face the world alone if everything and everyone turned against you? Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind this emotional journey, a story that will leave you inspired, angry, and ultimately hopeful. But first, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that matter. In a cramped and dusty slum in Mumbai, India, where narrow alleyways buzzed with the sounds of vendors shouting and children playing, lived a resilient woman named Meera. She was a mother to two young daughters, Priya, the elder at 12 years old, and Anjali, her spirited 6-year-old. Life had never been easy for Meera, but it became unbearably heavy after the untimely death of her husband, Rajiv, who succumbed to a severe fever that their meager earnings couldn't afford proper treatment for. With no other choice, Meera returned to her parents' small, overcrowded home, hoping to find refuge. Though they welcomed her with open arms, the weight of supporting another family soon became too much for them to bear. Her father, a frail man who worked odd jobs to make ends meet, often reminded her that she needed to think about her daughter's future. "You can't raise these girls alone," he would say. "Remarry, Meera. Find someone who can provide for you all." At first, Meera resisted the idea. The thought of bringing another man into her life, especially after losing Rajiv, felt like betrayal. She clung to the memories of her late husband and vowed to raise her daughters on her own. But as days turned into months, reality began to sink in. Their savings dwindled, food became scarce, and the pressure from her family grew relentless. Eventually, Meera found herself standing at a crossroads, torn between her pride and the harsh demands of survival. Reluctantly, she agreed to remarry, choosing a man named Arjun, who ran a small garment shop nearby. At first glance, Arjun seemed kind and willing to accept Priya and Anjali as his own. For a while, life appeared to stabilize. However, when Meera gave birth to a son, Arjun's affection shifted noticeably toward his biological child. Priya and Anjali were left to fend for themselves, their needs often overlooked or ignored. As time passed, Priya, now on the cusp of adolescence, took on responsibilities far beyond her years. She managed household chores, cared for her younger sister, and quietly endured the struggles of growing up in a world that seemed determined to overlook her. Little did anyone know, this quiet strength would soon be tested in ways no child should ever have to face. Whenever the girls asked for help or support, Meera would gently tell Priya, now 12, to take care of herself and her younger sister. Priya, mature beyond her years, quietly took on the responsibilities of managing the household chores, ensuring that Anjali was cared for and fed. Priya had stopped attending school long ago, as there were no schools in their impoverished neighborhood. However, she occasionally attended informal tuition classes held by a local teacher who volunteered her time to educate children in the slum. Despite her circumstances, Priya was eager to learn, clinging to the hope that education might one day lead her to a better life. One day, Arjun suggested that Priya should take the 8th grade equivalency exam so she could eventually enroll in a government school. Meera, eager for her daughter to continue her education, agreed. To prepare for the exam, Arjun arranged for Priya to stay with his nephew, Samir, in the city. Samir, a college student, had agreed to tutor Priya and help her prepare for the test. At first, Priya was excited about the opportunity. She imagined studying in a quiet room, surrounded by books, far from the chaos of the slum. But her excitement quickly turned to discomfort as Samir began crossing boundaries. At first it was subtle, casual touches, lingering glances, and unwanted attention. Priya, confused and scared, didn't know how to react. She tried to avoid him, but Samir's behavior only escalated. One evening, when everyone else was out of the house, Samir's actions crossed a line that left Priya terrified. Overwhelmed and unsure of what to do, she called her mother, Meera, sobbing uncontrollably. Meera, alarmed by her daughter's distress, reassured her that she would bring her back home soon. "It will be over soon," Meera said, trying to calm Priya down. But deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Meera immediately called Arjun, urging him to bring Priya back home. However, an urgent order at the garment shop delayed him, and in the meantime, Samir took full advantage of the situation. By the time Meera managed to arrange for Priya's return, the damage had already been done. When Priya finally came back home, Meera noticed a profound change in her daughter. The once cheerful and lively girl had become withdrawn and distant. Priya avoided eye contact, spoke only when necessary, and seemed to carry a heavy burden on her shoulders. Meera grew increasingly worried, but Priya refused to open up about what had happened. It wasn't long before Meera began noticing physical changes in Priya as well. Her daughter had grown unusually tired, emotional, and unwell. One evening, Priya fainted while helping with dinner. Panicked, Meera rushed her to the hospital. The doctor's diagnosis left her stunned. Priya was pregnant. Meera's heart sank as the weight of the situation hit her. She couldn't comprehend how this could have happened, and a wave of guilt washed over her. She blamed herself for sending Priya away, for trusting Arjun's family, and for not protecting her daughter better. In her distress, she tried to console Priya, holding her close and weeping alongside her. But Meera knew that tears wouldn't solve anything. She promised herself, and her daughter, that she would find a way to get justice, no matter the cost. Meera immediately confronted Arjun, telling him everything she had discovered. Arjun, shocked and disbelieving, initially tried to deny the possibility. But as the truth became undeniable, his reaction was far from supportive. Instead of standing by Meera and Priya, Arjun grew angry. He accused Priya of lying, suggesting that she had fabricated the story to tarnish the family's reputation. "Do you know what this will do to us?" Arjun shouted. "People will talk. They'll say we're a disgrace." Meera, overwhelmed by his lack of empathy, realized that she couldn't rely on Arjun for support. She pleaded with him to help her find a solution, but he remained firm in his stance. "This is your problem, Meera," he said coldly. "Deal with it." Meera was appalled. Aborting the pregnancy would be dangerous for Priya at this age, she argued. "And how can you suggest we sweep this under the rug? This is our daughter's life we're talking about." Faced with Arjun's betrayal and the overwhelming pressure of her situation, Meera knew she had to act alone. She reached out to a local women's rights organization, seeking legal advice and support. Though the road ahead would be difficult, Meera vowed to fight for her daughter's future. She would not let Priya's voice be silenced, and she would ensure that Samir paid for what he had done. But as Meera prepared to take the first step toward justice, she couldn't ignore the harsh reality of the challenges ahead. The community, already judgmental and unforgiving, would likely turn against her. Arjun's family would do everything in their power to protect Samir. And Priya, still reeling from the trauma, would need more than just legal action. She would need love, patience, and healing. With determination burning in her heart, Meera whispered to Priya one night as they sat together in the dim light of their small home. we will get through this, Beta. Together. And with that promise, Mira stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever lay ahead for the sake of her daughter's future. Determined to hold Samir accountable, Mira reached out to a local women's rights organization. They connected her with a lawyer who specialized in cases of sexual abuse. The lawyer assured Mira that they would do everything possible to bring Samir to justice, but he warned her that the road ahead would be difficult. Word of the scandal spread quickly through the slum. Neighbors whispered behind Mira's back, accusing her of exaggerating the situation or even fabricating the story to damage Samir's reputation. Some even suggested that Priya must have done something to provoke him. The judgmental stares and cruel comments weighed heavily on Mira, but she refused to back down. Meanwhile, Samir continued to deny all accusations. When confronted by his uncle Arjun, he dismissed the claims as lies. "I didn't do anything wrong," he insisted. "Priya is just trying to get attention. You know how girls are." Arjun, desperate to protect his family's honor, sided with Samir. He pressured Mira to drop the case, threatening to leave her if she pursued legal action. "If you continue with this, don't expect me to stay," he warned. "I won't be associated with such disgrace." Mira was devastated but resolute. She knew that walking away from the case would mean abandoning Priya and allowing Samir to escape punishment. "If you leave, so be it," she replied, "but I will not let my daughter suffer in silence." With no support from Arjun or his family, Mira forged ahead alone. She began gathering evidence, including text messages and phone calls where Samir had subtly admitted to inappropriate behavior. She also spoke to other relatives who had witnessed his unsettling demeanor toward young girls in the past. As the case gained traction, Samir's arrogance began to falter. He had always believed that no one would dare challenge him, especially in a community where victims of abuse were often silenced. But Mira's determination proved stronger than his confidence. One day, Mira decided to confront Samir directly. Accompanied by her lawyer, she went to his house and demanded an explanation. At first, Samir laughed off the accusation, calling her paranoid and desperate. But when Mira played a recorded conversation where he admitted to crossing boundaries, his face turned pale. "You think you can intimidate me?" Samir snarled, though his voice trembled with fear. "It's not intimidation, it's the truth," Mira replied, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. At that moment, Mira knew there was no turning back. She had exposed Samir for the predator he was, and now it was time to face the consequences. As Mira prepared to take legal action against Samir, she faced fierce opposition not only from Arjun but also from the entire community. News of the scandal spread quickly through the slum, and whispers about Priya's pregnancy became the talk of the neighborhood. Many people, including those who had once been friendly with Mira, turned their backs on her. They accused her of exaggerating the situation, or even fabricating the story to tarnish Samir's reputation. "Why would you ruin your own family like this?" one neighbor hissed. "You should have kept quiet for the sake of your daughters." Mira tried to ignore the gossip, but it stung deeply. She had always been a proud and resilient woman, but now she felt small and isolated. Despite the social backlash, her resolve remained unshaken. She knew that if she gave up, Priya's pain would be in vain. She had to fight, not just for justice, but for the truth to be heard. With the help of the lawyer she had contacted, Mira began gathering evidence to build a strong case against Samir. She collected testimonies from neighbors who had witnessed his inappropriate behavior toward young girls in the past. She also secured medical records confirming Priya's pregnancy and played the recorded phone call where Samir admitted to crossing boundaries. Slowly, the pieces of the puzzle started coming together. However, Samir's family was equally determined to protect him. They accused Mira of lying and even suggested that Priya had seduced Samir to ruin their family's reputation. "She's just a child," Mira retorted during one heated confrontation. "How dare you blame my daughter for something so vile?" Despite the mounting pressure, Mira refused to back down. With every accusation thrown at her, she grew more resolute. She reminded herself daily why she was doing this: for Priya's future, for her healing, and for the countless other girls who might fall victim to predators like Samir. The trial finally began, and Samir was formally charged with sexual assault. Mira took the stand, recounting the horrors her daughter had endured and the lengths she had gone to seek justice. The defense team tried to tear apart her testimony, accusing her of being an overprotective mother seeking revenge. They even suggested that Priya had fabricated the story to escape responsibility for her pregnancy. Mira stood firm, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. "I am here because my daughter deserves justice," she declared. "No child should suffer what Priya has suffered, and no predator should walk free." Priya, though terrified, was also called to testify. Sitting in the courtroom surrounded by strangers, she clutched her mother's hand tightly. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but her words were clear. She described the nights she had spent in fear, the feelings of helplessness and confusion, and how Samir had manipulated and abused her trust. For the first time in months, there was a flicker of hope in her eyes, a sign that she might begin to reclaim some part of herself. As the trial progressed, more evidence came to light. Witnesses recounted instances of Samir's inappropriate behavior, and the damning phone recording left little room for doubt. His arrogance began to falter as the truth closed in around him. Yet, even as the case built against him, Mira faced new challenges. Arjun, who had already abandoned them, continued to haunt her thoughts. His indifference weighed heavily on her, but she reminded herself that she didn't need his support. She had learned to rely on her own strength, and she would see this fight through to the end. Finally, the day of the verdict arrived. Mira sat in the courtroom, her heart racing as the judge prepared to announce Samir's fate. She held Priya's hand tightly, offering her comfort and reassurance. Together, they had come this far, and no matter what happened next, they would face it as a team. The courtroom fell silent as the judge read the verdict. "Samir is found guilty of sexual assault," he announced. "He is sentenced to a lengthy prison term." A wave of relief washed over Mira as the weight of months of struggle lifted from her shoulders. Justice had been served. Samir's reputation was shattered, and he would finally pay for his crimes. While the conviction brought a sense of closure, Mira knew that the road to healing was far from over. The emotional scars left on Priya, and on herself, would take much longer to heal. But Mira was determined to move forward. She promised Priya that they would start anew, leaving the painful memories of their past behind. Mira decided to relocate with Priya to a new town, far away from the judgmental stares and cruel gossip of their old neighborhood. In their new home, Priya slowly began to heal. Supported by her mother's unwavering love and care, she regained her confidence and enrolled in a local school. Mira found a job that allowed her to provide for her family, and together, they rebuilt their lives. Though the trauma lingered, they learned to live again, free from the shadows of the past. Mira realized that her fight for justice had not only been for Priya, but for herself as well. It had given her strength, resilience, and the courage to create a brighter future for them both. The bond between mother and daughter grew stronger, and they found hope in the possibility of a new chapter. As they stood side by side, watching the sun rise over their new town, Mira whispered to Priya, "We've come so far, Beta, and we'll keep going, together." And with that promise, they stepped into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Mira hoped that their story would inspire others to speak up, to fight back, and to believe in the power of truth. Because every child deserved a chance to live without fear.